Their death sent shockwaves through communities across Ontario. Their killers remain at large. And now months, if not years later, two journalists are cracking open the cold case files and looking to track a killer. It's called Tracking a Killer, the Cold Case Files. That's the name of the podcast. And joining us here in studio to discuss are hosts Fil Martino and Madison Fitzpatrick. Thank you both for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. So this is the fourth season here. You're talking about some horrific incidents that have happened that have stuck with people in some serious subject matters. I want to start first by asking you if you can kind of explain, give us an idea of what listeners can expect.
Yeah, so for this season we have 8 brand new cases. They go on from a young man who was shot in the back of a vehicle and left there to die, all the way to a young woman who was just out for a jog and she was taken and brutally murdered. We have so much to discuss. We talk to investigators again, detectives, and family members to just get a real sense of who the victims were and why their stories aren't concluded just yet.
What I appreciate about podcasts like this is that you're keeping the names of the victims in the headlines here, their stories in the headlines. And one of those victims is Elizabeth Bain, who disappeared 34 years ago. Police have been looking for her killer ever since.
So yes, Elizabeth Bain, she was a University of Toronto student in the Scarborough campus. She disappeared. Her boyfriend at the time was convicted of her murder, Robert Baltovich. He spent 8 years in jail, and then he was found not guilty. And so instead of putting this behind him, he is still looking for the killer.
Wow.
So he has assembled this team of investigators to look into the case, and he has teamed up with Guelph Humber. So there is a class looking over the files, the police files, to try to see if they can find something that was missed. So we are taking a look at this case once again. We talked to Robert Baltovich. We talked to the professor who's helping him. And this is the second time. We had him on in our first season, and this is, we're retelling the story because this is something that we really want to see solved.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, it happened 34 years ago. I'm wondering for you, what's the process like when you approach, a horrific story like Elizabeth's and having to reach out to the friends and family, of course, and the police officers, the emergency officials who responded, and they have to relive those moments again in telling the story. What's that process like?
I think that's a good question, Faiza, because that kind of helps us determine which cases we actually are going to tell. Because in just, like Elizabeth's case, you have to talk to people who knew her. Mm-hmm. Also, the detectives who hopefully were working on the case at the time. We want to hear from all voices. And I think it's really important to Fil and I as journalists that we get the facts. We don't just talk on the podcast, speculate, just spit out theories. We actually want real facts and real stories from family members, parents, friends who knew them to really get an idea of who they were as a person, not just to talk about this horrific crime that happened to them.
Yeah, and that's one element of how you decide which cases.
Mm-hmm. Because let's just look at the Toronto Police. They have, I believe it's about 800 cold cases on file. Yeah. There's so many stories to tell.
Yeah.
And yes, it's hard to figure out which ones are we going to tell. And we do have people actually reach out to us. We had a family member reach out to us and he said, please tell my mother's story. So there are so many ways we pick our episodes.
Okay, talk about when each episode drops and where people can listen.
Yeah, so basically wherever you like to listen, whether that's Apple, Spotify, Amazon.
Seekr.
Yep, the new Seekr app. But yeah, so our episodes drop every Monday, starting on February 2nd. That's our season 4.
Okay, so Tracking a Killer, the Cold Case Files, Season 4 premieres February 2nd, as it was just mentioned here. Fil and Madison, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and speak with us about this.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.